Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4. Is it's called like 3B.
3B, that could be 3C. Yeah, we're getting there because it's the same subject.
Yeah, some number. If you have zero context, we've been doing a few in a series with Billy with API3 taking us through OAV, Oracle Extractable Value, all the way to building our own version of Aave. And today we'll be performing liquidations, which is particularly relevant right now. So this came at a good time. But I forget myself. Let's quickly do introductions. Hi, I'm Emily. I lead the DevRel team here at Scroll. We just do a bunch of streams all the time with really brilliant minds here teaching us how to code and do different things in the, I guess, blockchain space. But Billy, I'll let you introduce yourself and then take us away.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Billy. Billy Jitsu in the streets and the Twitters or X now. I'm a boomer. Whatever. This is a series of multiple series about DeFi, understanding how oracles work, understanding how DeFi works, understanding borrow lending. I came to the realization that a lot of people don't really know it. It's a small niche of people that actually utilize this stuff and actually build it. So this is my attempt to help expand that, understand why it is, and get into the actual juicy part for those that have been following along with the workshop series. I'll cover it again in the template, but basically we've been building you up to this point where you can actually make money, right? So this is probably the most exciting workshop for most people. There is going to be split into two pieces because there has been with the new year and a major change in the way OV works. We're going to do liquidations normal, and then in the next workshop, I'm going to squeeze in how to do liquidations with OEV because I'll have to cover all the OEV stuff. But we have tons of math to cover, tons of concepts to cover. So let me just go ahead and share my screen and get this thing started. If you have questions, do not feel compelled to feel bad about stopping me. Please stop me. I'll stop and do everything we need to do and explain everything we have. Okay, so API3, real world data straight from the source. If you've been following workshop 1, you know that we are a first party Oracle, so you can prove every source that's out there. During this chaotic crash that happened basically a week ago or less than a week ago, that's like an aeon in crypto things. It worked perfectly. Everything worked well. OEV worked well. So it was very, very nice to actually show that this whole concept that we've been working on, liquidations, all worked to the T. I am your developer support. If you have any questions about OEV or oracles in general, or you just want to, just talk about stuff, I am pretty accessible on there. This is my Twitter. If you like memes and technical talk and just regular sarcasm, I'm your guy. Cool. So just to recap it, the first workshop that would be in the first YouTube series with Scroll or Level Up would be the fundamentals of API3. We learn how to use price feeds, why we need them, learning how to use an adapter for your code if you were using a different type of Oracle before and you didn't want to, change your code or refactor anything, or if you were on Scroll but you used a different library and that feed wasn't there, showed you how to do that. Small update now is we are compatible with V3 interface right out of the box, so you don't really need an adapter anymore. So there's a lot of changes that keeps evolving. We listen to the users and we evolve with them. Second workshop was OEV, Oracle Extractable Values, how push and pull oracles work, how to use the OEV network, how we made a bid, and how we actually updated the price. There are a few changes on that, and we'll discuss that on the second part of the liquidation series. Third workshop, right, is the first one was I just wanted you to deploy Aave, understand how it worked, play with it, have your own borrow lending dApp where you can actually use it, right? I know a lot of people have been, doing a lot of AI agent stuff, and we've been talking about like DeFi or DeFi AI, right? But without an actual product to work on, like on a testnet, AI agents can only do things in theory, right? Like it maybe transfer a token or deploy a contract, which is very limited. Well, now you have a borrow lending platform that you can control that your AI agent can now interact with, right? Instead of working with outdated testnet stuff, you have your own that you can control the narrative of and then actually see what your AI agent can do. That's exactly what I'm doing in an AI hackathon currently. I'm actually using this deployed Aave to do some theories and stuff. So we are going to be working on liquidations today. So we're actually, now that we have this deployed, we're going to be covering some, terminology, understanding how it works, and actually getting into the actual liquidation part. Fourth workshop, we do liquidations and that's all fine and dandy, but what if we're not millionaires, right? We see this $10 million liquidation that we can make 5% off. Would be great if we had the money. Well, with flash loans, you can borrow the money in the same block. So we're going to show you how to do a flash loan based on the Aave fork that we have. And then on the final workshop, we're going to put it all together. We see the opportunity. We're going to update the feed. We're going to do the liquidation with a flash loan, pay back the loan, all with minimal amounts of money. Boom. So getting into the workshop itself, we are going to perform a liquidation, right? So key learning points for this workshop is we're going to understand over collateralized loans, our loan to value. We're going to calculate our liquidation prices. We're going to understand the mechanics of a liquidation. Like, how does an unhealthy position get healthy, right? Someone borrowed this money and they took money, but they have some money in there, and then someone liquidates them. How do they still, want to pay back their position, right? And then the flow of token transactions, which can be very confusing for everybody that just starts. So we first, kind of deployed Aave. I kind of wanted to get you just to deploy it. So now we got to understand terminology, right? Like, I might have said a few things before that may have not made sense. So we want to clear that up. So when I say collateral, it's assets that serve as your security deposit, right? So if I have ETH and I want to borrow, let's say USDC, my ETH, when I deposit that, that's my collateral, right? So my ETH is my collateral. I think I have $2,000 or $1,000 of ETH. I want to borrow $700. I have to put that ETH up for collateral for me to borrow, right? Over collateralization is the borrower has to provide something more valuable than what they're borrowing, right? So I have to put in $1,000 of ETH in order to borrow up to maybe $700 of USDC, right? That way I'm inclined to pay back my loan. Under collateralization is basically you're putting something up or have nothing up in order to borrow some money. That doesn't work in most cases in crypto currently. If you gave me free money and there was no penalty for it, why would I pay it back? I don't know. I have a hard time like understanding that logic. I can understand loans, but it works more like a credit card, right? They go based on your reputation. Hey, we'll lend you up to this much credit limit for you to do it as long as you pay it back at a high rate. But I haven't seen it work in crypto just yet, but you never know. Could be some crack dev that figures out some kind of moral compass and makes it work. And then liquidation is basically at that point where your collateral doesn't meet the requirements of your debt. There is going to be some kind of liquidation on your position where I'm going to pay back the loan for you and then get some return of value on there. So that's kind of pretty much, I'm going to be throwing those terms around so you can kind of understand it. So what is a borrow lending dApp in general, right? It's basically over collateralized borrowing with like whatever asset you have. So it acts kind of like as a central point of a bank, right? So as I said in the example before, we have our collateral, we have this ETH, we're going to deposit it into our, borrow lending dApp. I want to draw USDC, right? I don't want to sell my ETH to buy more ETH. I believe, Trump narrative is, Eric Trump is like promoting ETH. It sounds like a good deal. I feel like it's going to go up. I've lost a lot of money in this liquidation, but I'm sitting on like, a couple ETH. I want to buy more ETH because I really believe it. So I'm going to use my ETH to borrow some USDC and then maybe buy more ETH. Hopefully it goes up, sell that, pay back my position, and I've made money on this possible run, right? But so I'm drawing this USDC. And then in order for me to get that original collateral back, I got to pay back my loan in order to get my ETH back, right? I can't just pull my ETH back. I have to pay back some of that loan and then get my ETH back. Otherwise, if I don't pay it back, I lose out on that ETH. So how much can we actually borrow? This is going to be the most important thing if you're borrow lending life. And as a liquidator, health factor, right? Health factor is a simple formula, is the value of your collateral, which is going to be the value of your ETH. Liquidation threshold is what the platform decides, what value it can get before it feels like it's a bad debt. And then the total value of your debts, right? So just understanding this formula, we'll cover a little bit more. Let's get into the details of it, right? The value of your collateral versus the liquidation threshold is your borrowing capacity, right? So if I put in $1,000 of ETH and they say the liquidation threshold is maybe 75%, and the max you can borrow is maybe 70%, the max I could borrow off $1,000 of ETH would be $70. So that would be the total amount of debts, right? So your liquidation threshold, when you throw in the math, anything above 1, you're healthy. You didn't hit the capacity. Anything under 1, you're in that danger zone of a liquidation, right? So as soon as you go from 1 to 0.99, you're up for liquidation. The liquidation threshold is something that provides a secure margin. That is depending on the asset, right? If I'm a borrow lending dApp and I say ETH has been around for a long time, it's got tons of liquidity, it's supported on many exchanges, if not all of them now. It's on almost all the layer twos. It feels like a safe, asset. Let's say I just dropped in a new token, right? It's a year old. It's on maybe one exchange on mainnet. Do you want to lend out as much USDC as you would as ETH? Probably not, right? So you wouldn't lend out as much. It's not as secure. So maybe you have a smaller liquidation threshold. Maybe they can only borrow 50% of their value instead of like 70% or maybe 40%. That's up to the team, up to the DAO, whoever controls those assets. The way Compound does it, the way Aave does it, they have a DAO that votes on these things, what tokens you can list, at what kind of threshold or capacity can they borrow, right? So anytime that health factor falls below 1, that borrowing position is now liquidable. So it's not like you can borrow the same amount on every token. Each one has their own values. So just to put a little example, visual, I'm a visual learner. So just to see, we have ETH, USDC ETH is worth $2,000. So I deposited $2,000. I can borrow $1,500 in USDC. So I borrow cap. I borrow 1250 USDC. I'm feeling good. And then we go to sleep. Europe went to sleep, and then the liquidation happened, right? And all of a sudden, ETH fell down to 1600 just overnight. I went to sleep, woke up. I'm like, whoa, it's 1600. Well, if our ETH is 1600, our borrowing capacity for that is only $1,200 because of that liquidation threshold formula. And so we have 1250. So we are in debt, right? So I can be liquidated. So just by holding that same USDC and then having this ETH just drop in value overnight or within an hour or a flash crash, I now are in liquidation threshold. So that's pretty much, what happens, right? My health factor is below 1. I'm in the danger zone. So, excuse me. Why are liquidations important? And now, if I'm losing anybody, feel free to stop me and do the question. But why liquidations are important, like the mechanics, right? If assets are losing values, like what reason would I have to pay back my loan, right? Like if I put in $1,000 of ETH, like I put one ETH and it was $1,000 and I borrowed $700 and then it, dropped down to $500, I still have $700 on my wallet. And like maybe ETH comes back up to 1,000 and it's like, oh, I paid back. I ran no risk, right? Because I just cashed out. And if I didn't want to pay back my loan, I was on the up, right? So if the borrower doesn't pay back the loan, then who will, right? Who's going to pay it back? So in order for someone to pay back a loan, they have to be incentivized. So the way these platforms work is, the platform can decide how much can be paid back off of bad debt. Currently, Aave on average is only 50% of the debt. So if I borrowed $700, I can only pay back 350. If I had 1,000, I can pay back 500. Compound, they have something called the close factor. So depending on the asset, it has a different close factor. So again, that's decided by the DAO on what that close factor can be. And then you have crazy degen platforms like derivatives like DYDX. You can pay back the entire loan, 100% of the loan for maximum amount. So, it really depends on what kind of borrow lending dApp or, futures or, any kind of borrow lending, what am I can't think of the word right now. Leveraging system is depending on what it is. So maybe you want 100%, but there's a lot more competition for it, so you have to decide your strategy for that. So let's do some math. Let me grab this thing really quick so I can draw on here, hopefully make it easy for you. Okay, so we have these scenarios where we have this borrow cap, 70%, liquidation threshold is at 75%, ETH is worth $1,000 at this current time. Our close factor is 5%, so 50% can be paid back. Our liquidation spread is 0.1, so we know that we can borrow $700 USDC, right? We're going back to this original liquidation threshold, right? It's the value liquidation threshold over the debt equals your health factor. Let me trash that. So we know that $1,000 at the liquidation threshold, we can borrow $700. Our health factor is 1.07. We are dangerously close to getting liquidated, right? So ETH drops to $900 just overnight. Like there's a little flash crash. Okay. So we're going to go back to that same formula. It's $900, same liquidation threshold, same debt. We didn't pay back our loan. We are now in a liquidable position, right? 0.96. We are below 1. So we know that our max debt to repay is the borrowed amount times the close factor, right? So the most we can pay back out of that $700 of debt is $350. So we know we can pay that back. So how do we value the collateral that we're going to receive? There's another formula. It's the debt repaid of 1 minus the liquidation spread, which we know is here, and the current asset price. So if we go back to this formula, remember we can pay back 350 on the debt. We know our liquidation spread is 0.1, so we're going to calculate that. And then we know that the value of the asset is now $900. So we know that the ETH is $900. So if we do that calculation, we in turn will return 0.4321 ETH. And that's just math. I didn't make that up. That we'll get that back to us. So let me go ahead and trash that. So we know that this is what we're going to get for 350. So we're going to go ahead and pay back that loan. And so the depositor's remaining collateral, right? Once they pay back that bonus to us, they'll be left with 5679 ETH, right? Also, their debt has been paid back. So from that $700, we paid back $350. So they only owe $350. And so now their position, let me clear this out, is they have their remaining ETH, which is 0.5679. The value of ETH is $900, right? So that's the value of ETH, whatever's left over. We no longer have one anymore. The liquidation threshold is 0.75, right? And our debt is 350. So now you see that with the math, our position goes back to above one. So we are back at a healthy position. I lost a piece of my money, but now I'm back at a healthy position. And so the user value that they've lost is $700 of USDC in their pocket. Remember, they never paid it back. So they have $700 in USDC plus whatever's left over in ETH. That leaves them with a value of 861. Again, remember that that ETH went down in value $100. So if it went back up, that's about 5-ish% lost in value. So you lose 5%. Did that math kind of work out in your head?
It's like yes and no. I have to like sit and think.
Yes. Yeah. This slide will be available, but that's how the math works. So if this scenario where ETH keeps falling down in price, let's say it gets to like 600 and that debt is really, really low, that's something called bad debt. And that happened to Curve when there was that, kind of like targeted attack on exchanges and everything, where the debt was so bad and the value dropped so low that it wasn't worth the liquidation on there. So you have to incentivize quick liquidations. Otherwise, it gets so bad that the platform itself, like Aave or Kama, would be unhealthy. So you want to incentivize things to go, because if it gets too low, no one wants to pay it back because the asset you get back is too low. It's not worth the value. So it's pretty much this formula, value liquidation threshold, and then the collateral to receive. Those are the two formulas that you would use based on how much money would I get back if I were to pay this loan back. And you're usually getting 5 to 10% back, depending on what the liquidation spread is on there. So just moving on there, and we can, as you ask more questions, we can go through it. The liquidation token flow. This is what you expect to happen, right? Me as the liquidator, I expect to pay back the loan. I'm paying back the 350 USDC, and I'm expecting the lending pool to say, all right, here's your reward. So 2 transactions, right? That's not what really happens. You get this whole thing happening right here with going back and forth and all these random things happening in the back end. So let's take it from the top. We are the liquidator wallet. Let me bring this out. Just if I don't know if the red thing helps or not. I'm just doing it. So if it's worse,
It's helpful for me. So
okay. All right. So this is our liquidator wallet, right? So we have this wallet. We are paying back 50% of that debt. So from right here, I'm using another token. So I'm paying back 50% of this debt position. Let's pretend that's the 350 that we had, right? This is the borrow wallet, right? So the interest they're earning receipt is burned. So like I'm getting $100,000 of these tokens, or I'm receiving that 0.4321 ETH. This is being burned, right? Because they have these A tokens. Remember that in the last time we talked for the deposit, we received these A tokens. In that borrow wallet, these A tokens are now being burned, right? Because they're no longer earning interest on tokens that they don't have. They're being liquidated. So this is being burnt out. So that interest earning receipt is burned, right? Now I'm also here getting paid back. So what they got burned, that's coming to me on my wallet. So this is the payout for receiving the payback loan. So I pay back this debt. They're getting burned. Now that value is now coming to me in my wallet, right? also I pay back their debt. So their debt token, what they owed on that position, that 350 USDC, they have a debt token too. That gets burned from their wallet. And then the interest earned on that block from that AUSDC, that gets burned too. This is from another protocol that's not in our wallet. That's just interest earned that's being earned on that yield for that specific block. That's just, it's like no one gets that. That's just being burned on there. So it's a flow of me paying back, the interest earning tokens gets burned. I get the asset in my wallet. The debt variable gets paid back. So those debt tokens get burned. And then any interest earned in that single block transaction, that gets burned too because it goes to nobody. So that's the actual flow of a liquidation. So when you're looking at the block and you say, hey, look at, I like see a lot of these hack, transactions, and you see like 10 pages of stuff of like all these transactions. It's just tokens moving back and forth, debt tokens being burnt, interest accruing tokens being taken away, assets being pulled out. Right? So just, it's a good flow of understanding. Like I thought, oh, I just pay back tokens and get some back. Well, there's more to it because of the way the token mechanics work. This is the same way for Compound. They have their S tokens. This is the same way for like DYDX. So just a general flow of understanding how this all works makes it more understandable. And then, the transaction fee for everything I paid. This was on Scroll, by the way, so super, super low fee. But yeah.
Yay. We have a comment, not a
Yes.
question, but this is much more fun when you aren't being liquidated and the gas is at 350 away, so you can't add any collateral.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So just to understand how this token flow, I'm going to kind of like draw it out of like where these things are put together. I couldn't fit it on a single screen, so bear with me on this, but let's take this scenario, right? ETH is $1,000 USD, right? Me as the default user, I put in the ETH, right? I put in my 1 ETH from my wallet. So now the borrow lending dApp holds this 1 ETH. I then borrowed 700 USDC, right? So in my wallet, I'm holding this interest bearing ETH because it's earning yield on here. And then I have the $700 USDC cold cash in my pocket. And me and the liquidator, I'm on standby with 350. I have to scroll this down. Okay. Now, still looking at this default user wallet, borrow lending dApp, and the liquidator. Next transaction is I have this interest earning ETH, right? I still have $700 USDC in my pocket. I also have this $700 variable debt USDC, right? I borrowed it, so I have to pay debt on theirs. And if we look on here, I'm going to come back to this. The borrow lending debt still holds all the assets currently. And me as the liquidator sees that the ETH value is now $900. I want to pay back this $350 USDC. I'm paying 50% of the debt. In this wallet, you see that the variable debt USDC is getting burned, right? And that transactions, we know that the debt is getting burned because I am paying this back. I don't think I need to use the pen, but we'll see. It's a bigger mouse. All right. Now, in the second part of the transaction, again, we were using that same formula, right? The 350 V USD is still getting burned, right? I still have $700 USDC, and now I'm burning that 43218 interest earning ETH. That gets burned. This is the 0 address. This had all the assets, and now the debt has been paid. So now this only holds 350 USDC from this debt, and then it's paying back. It no longer has 1 ETH. It has paid back 4321 ETH to me. So I have sent out 350 USDC, and now I have 4321 ETH at $900 values, which in turn returns me $388. So from 350, I basically made what $38.89 as a liquidator, right? So I put in 350, got 388 back, 89. So I profited as a liquidator. Hopefully that makes sense with the flow. That's the same block transactions that are happening, just so you can see it and what all the wallets that get put into position here. So what asset do you get back? So you get the asset that is deposited as collateral. With multiple deposits, you get to choose. So in this example, for simplicity, I deposited ETH and I got USDC, right? But that's not always the case with everybody. Sometimes I might have some wrap BTC, maybe I have some ETH, maybe I have some scroll token, and I put all those in and then I borrow USDC, right? Depending on the reward you get is the liquidation spread. So you can get 5 to 10% as a reward option, right? So let's say wrap BTC gives you a 5% reward, ETH gives you a 5% reward, but Scroll gives you a 10% reward because it really wants you to pay back because it doesn't want to have bad debt on that. So savvy liquidators will pick the highest reward asset for the swap. For that same 350, I can choose to get 5% in ETH or 5% in wrap BTC, or I can get 10% back with Scroll. Well, I'd want the 10% back because it's the same 350, same transaction. So I have to be aware of all the rewards for the liquidations, because that same transaction in that same time, I can double the amount of profit I get back by just choosing the right asset, right? So that requires analyzing each position, understanding what reward you get per what asset. But yeah, if there's a liquidation on there that occurs, you always want to go the one with the higher reward, because it just makes sense. You've done all the work, everything, you can get the highest payout. So in the liquidation transaction, you can actually choose the asset that you get in return, assuming that is an asset that's available for you to get back. Excuse me. So this is the way liquidations on lending protocols work, right? First, the oracle must update, right? Then the prices change, the health factor changes, right? So then the health factor goes below 1. Searchers now, they see the liquidable position, competition for the block space auction happens, and then profits, right? So here's where it gets kind of funky right here. So on Scroll, we have a sequencer. There's no way to theoretically bribe the sequencer. So if you look on Dune Analytics, you look on all these layer twos that have no way to bribe it, you're seeing like 30 spam transactions happening every second on the second, waiting for this Oracle update to position. So you have literally like 10 different liquidators spamming 90 transactions at some time, and eventually one hits, right? And then that person gets the liquidator. And people use all kinds of techniques. They use a server right next to the sequencer in the same AWS cloud, so they're 0.5 milliseconds faster or anything. It becomes very competitive on there, but I can't really pay a lot of gas on a layer 2 because it's not going to have the priority on there. But just know, all this can't happen if the Oracle doesn't update, right? So the Oracle technically holds the power. And when we go into the next workshop, we're going to understand how that is the advantages you have with OEV, right? With Oracle extractable value, you earn the right to bid this, and then you can run this entire process, right? Until you don't have the right, you are fighting for competition in the block space. You are the 91st transaction spamming, with your 30 transactions, trying to get that first sequence to go through to make money. Because this example was for $350 on a liquidation, you made, a good percentage. Imagine $1 million liquidation. How many people are fighting for that, right? It's theoretically free money, assuming you have the money. So again, how does OEV play into this? Everybody wants that liquidation bonus. Now that everybody knows how to liquidate after this workshop, Emily's going to be throwing spams on there for positions. Everybody watching this workshop is going to be in there. So that competition for block space is the battle, right? On mainnet, it's MEV, right? So again, we can't bribe that sequencer on layer 2s, at least not yet. So you don't get a chance. Like it's just any man or any woman can spam until one hits. But with OEV, you can win to update that Oracle. And then that bid, this is what makes it really interesting for the dApps, is whatever you're willing to bid, whatever you're willing to bribe for that same MEV arbitrage, the dApp gets 80% to back of what gets liquidated, right? So in this past crazy liquidation where there's 2.6 billion, Compound uses some of our oracles for these some of their assets. We earned, I think, for them $190,000 back on there. We hit 100% of all the liquidations on OEV for them. So it's they were quite happy with that, right? Because as a borrow lending dApp, you are trying to convince users, deposit on me, borrow on me, because that's how you make money, right? If there's no market, nobody's using your platform, then what do you get back, right? So how do I incentivize users to use my platform? Well, I need better APRs or interest rates, something that's juicy for me, or lower debt, right? But if nobody's using my platform, I can't give you juicy rates. So now that there's liquidations, now people have lost money, so the value is lower, so I can't give you the best rates, right? So with OEV, you're getting 80% of that, bid back, and now you can use that to incentivize users to deposit on your dApp, and the circle of life continues, right? So this is how we'll get into it on the next workshop. This is kind of like a teaser, understanding how this liquidation works. So bringing back this flow here, if we remember, yes.
Oh, we have a question.
Yes. So that's a very good question. For the bots, we're assuming that we're swapping the preferred asset. Yes. No. So I get to choose the asset. So when I'm looking at the assets, or I'm looking at the position, and I'll show you on the script, that is basically something that I can decide. You can do it on a script, or for AI agent guys, you can have your AI agent kind of analyze the best position that they should swap it in on there. So like you can have half script, half agent. Again, agents are kind of 50-50 because everything has to be really quick in transactions. So queuing up an agent to analyze that data, you want to do it before the liquidations, not during, because if you're doing computations and request cost API and it's thinking, you've already lost, right? So it's it's you want to go with the max percentage. You already have the plan of attack before you even do this liquidation on every profile. Like if I know Emily has wrap PTC and scroll deposited on Aave and I'm ready to liquidate her, I already know before this position gets on there, I'm going to liquidate scroll because it gives me 10%. Like I already know this beforehand, before the liquidation, before this comes in. I have my own little database locally of all everybody. I have a profile, and then I know exactly what I'm going to take into. Can I use AI to do that beforehand? Of course. Use all the compute you want before, and then you have a plan. And then when I get it, it can then say, all right, do I want to swap it for stable? Do I want to swap it for ETH? Or do I want to keep the asset? And most of the time you're worried if the price is falling down, you want to stabilize. So then maybe you'll swap it on like a DEX or something to stabilize. And that way you secure your profit on there. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, go for it. Throw me well, I'll go on here. But coming back to this chart of like the way Aave works is, okay, we know the ADI tokens, AUC, those are the interest bearing. We know the DEP tokens, right? We have this Oracle proxies configurator, all this stuff we covered on the last one, like that just gets deployed for you. You don't really have to understand it. The most important part, again, is the lending pool contract, right? It's where we deposit, we would do our borrows, we repay, draw. Most important, liquidate and flash zone all interact with that same lending pool address on there. So this is what we're going to interact with all the time. This is most of the front facing stuff. And for the liquidations, we are going to interact with that contract, and that's available to you when you deploy it on that list of stuff that you had on the previous workshop. So blah blah blah. Link to the example. This is the GitHub. Actually, let me go ahead and do that, and say anybody's watching, they can watch it here. This is the repo, so you can use it as the example. I'm going to cover it. We covered basically how to deploy it on the last one. Sorry, I'm like multitasking. I lost my train of thought. And I'm going to put this in the private chat. But this is repo is the same one as the one as last time. It has all the scripts, and we are going to kind of just go through the flow of the scripts to get everything up and running. Okay, let's close that out, minimize. All right, and so it should look like this. You have your adapters, liquidations, the Aave UI interface, a whole bunch of stuff from the fork, and the special folder, which is called scripts. Right. On the last time we went through it, we basically set up all the scripts to deposit a position, borrow some assets off of it. And so now we're just going to do the liquidate portion, right? Let me just bring back this up.
Zoom in.
Oh, okay. Geriatric mode. Geriatric mode.
Jerry,
Sorry.
don't call me that.
Yeah.
I'm never having you back. Only when I'm young and I don't know what the
I'm
second adjective
I'm
would be.
getting aged out. Okay, so on the last workshop, we did the deposit. We did the deposit USDC, right? In order for a bank to be able to lend out tokens, it needs to have the tokens in it. This is why I'm talking about incentivizing users to actually deposit stuff, because if no one's depositing anything, there's nothing to borrow and you have no market. But I've already, mocked it, right? We deposited USDC, we deposited our assets, we borrowed it, and we basically distributed our wallets. The way I have it set up is your first wallet is your depositor and the liquidator. Your second wallet is the one that creates the BAT position for themselves, and they are up and running. A couple things for this, if you want to do this on your own, is I have this update mock price system. And so in order for me to do a liquidation in real time, it can never happen because I can't control the price of an asset at any given time, and we're live, and it might work, might not. So I create a mock oracle, right? So if we look at the adapters when we deploy these and we go to the contracts, you'll see that I have this mock proxy, which is a fake value that just gives me a fake value. So when I read that oracle, it's going to give me a fake value. And then I have this this other one called OEV with mock proxy. It's pretty creative on my side. I'd have to give myself a pat on the back. I'm like, how can I do OEV in their main network, but then change the price to do a liquidation, even though the price is not real? So I do something with block timestamp on here. So when the Oracle updates gets updated on the mainnet, the price the value timestamp gets updated, but I use the fake value on here in order to do the liquidation on the price. So hopefully that we'll cover that a little bit more on the OEV integrations, but just know that I'm using a fake Oracle and updating it to make sure that I get the price that I need. So then we can run the liquidation. I'm not just like pulling an Oracle from API3 and like controlling it. It's impossible. We can't do that. So that is what I have for this script that has update mock price. I am just changing the price here just to bring back this position so you can see it. I have this asset position I have these fake API3 tokens that I have here. I've deposited my position. I borrowed out USDC and I magically adjusted the Oracle to make my health factor 0.199. But just to show you how this worked, this update mock price, I have this 139. I'm just going to change it to 4. And let me see, it's yarn update mock price. It will update the price and then it'll reflect on your position. Basically, this is the Oracle. We're theoretically kind of doing OEV in a sense where we are updating the Oracle as first and then, controlling the flow of the liquidation. But for testing purposes, we're just kind of doing the same. It's just going to run through the adapter script and I will show you the updated price. Load that. And my health factor is now healthy again, right? So like, okay, the price went up. I didn't get liquidated. Good for me. But let's go ahead and change it back because this is a liquidation workshop, not a Oracle workshop. So I'm going to update that mock price again. It's going to run through the scripts and then it'll update again. So while it's doing that, let's go into the liquidate position here. Take it from the top. Again, every one of these scripts, and I did this on purpose, and someone said, oh, that's bad code, is I want you to analyze each script on its own. I don't want to have references somewhere that like gets you confused and then you have to retrace where this, type came from or where this value came from or where this ABI came from. I want you to be able to like, this is a learning platform, right? So I want you to understand each piece. And I always use references to the references that we have here. So like, remember on the last one, we have our adapters. When we deploy, we have all our references for all our tokens that we deployed. So you can see all your tokens and all the oracles they use on the adapters. And then when we launch our Aave fork, we have our deploy contracts. And then you can see every one of these contracts here. And you can see that the lending pool one is right here. It's one of the most important ones. So I reference those for each one of the liquidations. So every time we do a script, it's just pulling that information into the script. That's the only reference that I go out. So basically it's kind of notes all the way through. I am simulating, the API3 tokens and USDC. We know those two assets are what we're going to be using. You can change the assets to whatever you want, right? And right now I'm just reading from the path. So this is just reading the data. We're setting up our key. We're setting up our, our object. Our liquidation wallet is going to be the first wallet in our mnemonic. So we're using wallet 0 as our deployer and liquidator. And our person to liquidate is going to be our second wallet, which is basically the second generation of our wallet. So we know that this is going to be our user to liquidate. And then we got to build up our lending pool address, which we know we pulled from here, from this, directory. We're pulling our liquidation, a lending pool address. I'm manually putting the ABI so you can see exactly which functions I'm calling. I'm getting the user account data to check their health position. And I'm doing the liquidation call, which is the one function that this whole workshop's in about, literally one function. That's it. And so now we set up our liquidation wallet, right? We just, get this all up and running, creating our object. And now we're saying, okay, this is the contract address for our API3 token. And this is the contract address for our USDC token. And then I just make sure that, all the contract addresses are looking correct based on those two sources on there. And then I'm going to get the user data, right? So I want to see the data on that specific user. We're clicking the lending pool object to get that data on the liquidable asset address we want to go. And we're going to see all the information that we get back, like how much collateral they have, how much debt they have, how much available borrows they have available to them, their current liquidation threshold, their loan to value, and their health factor. This is what you get back when you see the get user data. Do you want to see all of it? on a liquidation script? No, but I want to show you exactly what you get so you can play with it, modify it, to whatever you need. And I want to make sure that it is in a 18 values because it goes in hex values. And then just a note that these liquidations on AVV2, everything is based in ETH, not on the USD value. So if you want to do a USD value, you have to convert it yourself in the script. But I want to keep it as simple as possible. This is what you get. You get values in ETH. So we want to be able to calculate our max liquidation amount. We know that in AVV2, the max we can pay is 50%. So I'm doing this on here. On your script, if you were doing compound or another bot, you would, obviously go based on the close factor. So you can choose. And then I want to make sure that, I want to convert this so you can see what value there are in a readable format on here. So I'm just formatting here so you can see exactly what the position details are on there, and then returning it so you can log it out, basically. Then we're going to check our health factor. We're going to check that get user account data. We want to look at the health factor only, right? This is more demo stuff so you can see exactly what's happening in the backside. This is all we really need to check. Can they be liquidated or not, right? So we're just going to check our health factor. It's going to get that user account data. And we know that health factor is that user data at position 5. If we look back up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the health factor here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And so we just want that health factor. Can we liquidate them or not? Right. And so, yep, if it's true, then we continue on and we go ahead and make sure, yes, we can liquidate. Right. Then this is the whole point of this whole thing, perform a liquidation. Right. So in this example we're doing here, I'm keeping it as simple as possible. We are going to perform a liquidation from an EOA wallet. We are performing a liquidation from our first wallet generation. And we also happen to have that USDC in our wallet. In order to pay back the loan, we have to have the asset that we're paying back. Because I launched this from this wallet, I have a whole bunch of USDC. If you start messing around, the USDC actually has a faucet. So like if you, were playing around too much and you burned all the USDC, it has a faucet. So it'll just mint you, another 100,000 or something. So if you're experimenting and playing, go crazy with it. I've kind of built it to make sure that it has everything you need. Let's go back to liquidate, right? So this example and this example only, we're going to do it from an EOA wallet. Most bots never work on an EOA wallet, right? They deploy a contract and it does the flash loans and liquidations from a contract. So you would fund it. That'll be on the next workshop right here. But I want to keep it as simple as possible and make sure that, it's something that you can reproduce without extra complications, right? So we are just creating a, an object for our USDC. We want to be able to approve it. So here's the ABI, max UN56. When it's asking us what do we want to pay back, I can't think of a reason why you would never want to pay back the full amount for liquidation. Like, why would I ever want to pay 10% of a liquidation? I did all the work already, right? Like, I found the position, I've got everything prepped, I've paid for my RPC services. Why wouldn't I want to maximize my position? So this Ether's value, max max UN 256, is basically 0 FFFFFFF, one, like the maximum amount of value that we want to pay back on there. And then we're just going to go ahead and approve our USDC on the contract. We want to make sure that the lending pool address can call back on our pull that asset from our wallet. So we're going to approve the USDC. Just so you know, like, we don't send the tokens. We call the liquidation contract and the contract pulls it from our EOA. So that's why we have to set an approval. A lot of people get that confused with approvals for EVM. Is like we're like allowing, let's say you had a kid and say, can I borrow $20? You're basically approving them to come into your wallet and pull the $20 out of your wallet, right? If you can say, oh, can I approve a limited amount? That means you say you can take anything out of my wallet. But I'm approving specifically for this, this system, but I'm max approving on here because I don't want to wait. If I have another liquidation, I want to be able to throw it right away. So I'm max approving for it. But if you want specifics, you could just put the exact value that you want on there. And now here, we're going to make sure that we get that position data again. I always check, because what if they paid back their loan and then I just wasted a transaction, right? Right before I do it, I want to make sure that I can prepare this liquidation, right? And here it is. This one function call right here is the entire liquidation, right? We are saying this is what we're going to get back. This is the collateral asset that I want to choose. Your bot can decide what it is, but for this example, I'm only using one asset and one debt position. We know that the debt position is USDC because I did it, right? And you can analyze this on when you look at their position details, you can look at what assets they have. This is liquidation user. This is the wallet I want to liquidate, right? That's my second wallet. How much debt do I want to cover? I want all the debt on there. Do I want to receive interest-bearing tokens? No, I want to receive the native asset because I want to be able to swap that on a DEX and stable out. So I don't want to receive the interest-bearing tokens or the A tokens. No, I want to receive the pure token. If it's ETH, if it's API3 or whatever, I want that token natively, right? And then it's going to tell us the liquidation has been sent, and we wait, and then we get money, right? And then it's going to give us some details about the position after, and it should be healthy. So that's a lot to swallow. That's why I put the repo there, but hopefully that flow makes sense. We're checking their position, saying, hey, this is the wallet I want to liquidate. Can I liquidate? Is it below zero? Yes. All right, let's liquidate. These are the positions I want to liquidate. If it's above zero, it's going to say, no, can't liquidate, abort, basically. So as good, I'm going to go ahead and go yarn liquidate. Let me check that position here really quick. We're back at 0.99. Let's look at the balance here. Actually, let me just take a screenshot so we can compare here. I'll just hold on. So we see those numbers. I have this balance. I have this balance. Let me move this to the side. All right. And then we're going to run the liquidation, and hopefully the test network actually works. Live coding, and it's going to run through the scripts.
You should do this in real time so we can see how much money you make.
Never. All right, so this is going to go checking the health factor. So this is what you get in hex data, and I'll come back and do it on here. Liquidation transaction sent. Boom, liquidation has happened, right? So let's go ahead and check my health position. Where did I put that position here? There we go. Let me refresh it. I was 0.99. And now I'm at a health factor of 116. I'm nice and healthy again. And I have significantly a lower amount of USDC, and my balance is lower. If we go back to the old reference point, you see that I have way less money and way less debt on here. And yes, I wake up in the morning and I say, what the hell happened, right? Liquidator's like, haha, I made money. So let's look at that transaction detail. And this is all, again, all on here. So we have the liquidation wallet here. The user to liquidate is this wallet address. I just double logged it here for some reason. These are all the contracts that I'm using. This is the lending pool that I'm interacting with, that lending pool contract. These are the tokens, making sure that those tokens are correct. Like if you pop in the wrong tokens for you, you can verify it here. This is what you get on the health factor. You're going to get a bunch of hex numbers on here. And then I just format it to make sure, oh, this health factor position is 0.99. It's unhealthy. Let's do the liquidation, right? So we're going to get all this detailed positions. So I convert this data into this, right? So this is based on ETH. This is how much your collateral is. This is how much your debt is based on ETH. Available borrowers, they've maxed out, right? Their liquidation threshold 75%. Their loan to value for this single position was 70% based on that original formula. Their health factor, and then the max liquidable amount on here is what I can do this in ETH, and then I convert that to USDC. So I'm preparing for liquidation, getting that all prepped, and I'm just showing you all the math, right? This is the maximum amount that can be done. I sent the liquidation transaction on here, and the liquidation is successful. Then just to see what their position is after, just as for example, nobody cares what their position is after, but just to show you the improved numbers, right, of what they can do. They have now, they can borrow again if they want to max leverage it. Ultimately, their health factor is much healthier. If their health factor was low again, theoretically, we could liquidate them again if it is profitable, right? So if it got too low and it just flash crashed too much, you can do that. With OEV, if, we have this black swan event, like what happened to ETH on there when it went from 3,000 to 2,000, right? It just kept dumping. With OEV, if you win the right for 30 seconds, you can keep pushing until the 30 seconds is up. And we'll talk about that next. But you'll see that their debt reduced is by the amount, which is whatever I paid back. And it's all completed. We walk away with profit. And that's it. That's how you do a liquidation. It is simpler than you think. It's just a lot of information to absorb, right? Of learning what it is. But if you look at this one simple transaction, what do you want to get back? What do you want to pay? Who do you want to liquidate? How much do you want to liquidate? And do you want the interest bearing tokens or not? And that's it. This is the one function call that you need to do to perform a liquidation. So those work now, like this works now on Aave, Compound, DYDX, any borrow lending platform that has this kind of system in it will work. The problem is the competition, right? So it's you're all battling for this one thing on Scroll. If when this crazy event happened for $2.6 billion in the market, the internet was just going nuts on everybody throwing transactions. If you look at Dune Analytics, you're going to see everybody just spamming transactions, right? But if you notice the way oracles are going, we're not the only ones doing OEV now, right? Like every oracle provider is kind of following suit and coming up with their own solution. So this way will no longer be a way to do it anymore. The easy way is now done. You're going to have to learn a way to handle OEV. Otherwise, you're going to be behind the game, right? Currently, OEV is the only one that's kind of live. We have a full product. It's working. But eventually, you're going to have to learn one form of whatever they call it, you're going to have to learn how to handle that. And so that's going to be the next workshop of like, now you have this liquidation call, but you want to be able to control the oracle. So then you know that you are the first person to get that liquidation. We're going to call the same function, but we're going to control the oracle first. We're going to deploy it to a smart contract because the contract has to update the oracle. And then we perform the liquidation call from a smart contract. So that's like the first step. Like you should be able to play with this. You can deploy Aave. If you don't know how to deploy Aave, check out the first or the third workshop, the level up series, and then jump into this one. So then you know that you have it deployed, you have the position made, and now you can liquidate, right? You have the control of the oracle. It's all there for you. It's all in here. For those that want to even jump ahead, the flash loan scripts live here as well. So if you want to go into the flash loans on here, I even have a DEX, right? I'm like the DevRel for like Aave and like Uniswap. It's like there's a little mini DEX here too. So like if you wanted to uh, basically, well, not wrong one, liquidation folder, in order to actually get a position to pay back a loan with no money, right? Here's the thing that happens, right? I have this USDC and I paid it back and I got these API3 tokens. But if I'm doing a flash loan, I can't pay you back in API3 tokens. I have to pay you back in the USDC, right? I have to pay back the loan that I borrowed. So I have to swap it, right? So I'm going to have to go to a DEX, swap that asset, pay back the loan. So then I can do this like no money transaction. So we need a DEX. So I have this simple DEX. It's not as complicated as Uniswap. It's a very, very simple generic DEX. Handles token pairs. Doesn't have a factory. Doesn't have a router or anything. Every swap you do for our intended purposes, gives you a 10% bonus. So no matter what you swap, you always come back with 10%, so we can pay back our loan, right? For demo, that's what we need to do. So if you're jumping ahead, if it's in the same repo, you're playing around with it, the things are there, and the flash loan liquidation contract is there too. But this does not include the OEV. That is a separate repo. That's a little bit more complicated, and like we're up at the hour, so you see, just handling this liquidation was complicated enough. So that we're going to spend the next hour doing OEV and liquidation, and then doing it from a smart contract that most bots will normally do. And then I think that's it, unless there's any questions. And that's a lot to swallow. But again, my Twitter was up there. The API3 Twitter is there for any updates. The Discord is there for any questions. So we are here for you.
You
There
hear
we go.
me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, cool. My mic was being weird again. Yes,
Okay.
we did have one comment. I mean, you might have seen it. This has been an incredible workshop, top-notch quality.
I
Had to run,
appreciate it.
but it'll be yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate yeah, no, thank you so much. I mean, not on my behalf, but on Billy's behalf.
Yeah.
I did
The
wanna make one call out, I guess, if you guys didn't know. Scroll Open is happening. It's a 100K hackathon. If you're building anything in DeFi or, like, wanna leverage Oracle's API3 is gonna be your way to go. Registrations are closed, but we have the Buddy Pass referral code. So if you watch the stream and you want to join, go to open.scroll.io. When you land on a form to submit, the referral code is going to be API3. So I'll just throw that up on the screen. Referral API3. Okay, cool. But
awesome.
anything else you wanted to call to
I'm
action?
gonna throw my API3 shill, I guess. Yeah, I mean we've been around for about 5 years now. I've been with the team nearly 2 years. It's been an incredible journey of like the team quality. Um, why choose API3, I guess, is since inception, day one, we have had 0 misreports, right? That is huge. I can't think off the top of my head of anybody else that can say that. So 0 misreports. And with the biggest liquidation event in history for crypto history, OEV worked perfectly. So like everything's been theory until we have these like black swan events, and OEV worked exactly as it should. So as a borrow lending DApp, you can theoretically go with another Oracle and get nothing, or all you have to do is switch oracles and get something. So it's kind of like a
Yeah.
no-brainer of like now everything's been proven, right? Like it works. All this is not just theory. And that's why I'm really trying to show you like how to use this OEV, how to capitalize on this, because not enough of it is happening on layer twos on there. So it's like we need more people on this, and you get a better ecosystem, you get healthier ecosystems. Right now it's a lot of battles of the layer twos and getting liquidity and getting users. So like just get out there and make some money. You can make money when it goes up. You can make money when it goes down, right? So it's a good way to be. Yeah,
Absolutely. Okay.
yeah,
Making money is not a dirty word.
no, no,
Plural.
yeah,
Well, anyways, thank you so much for joining, Billy. I mean, we'll schedule another one after this
yep,
as we continue the series. But
yep,
thank
yep.
you so much for your time.
Of course,
Cool.
play around with it. If you have questions, you know where to ask.
Cool. Bye.